A family comes home after dinner at a restaurant. They step inside, one by one, and then bang. A gunshot tears through the silence. Someone had been waiting for them, right there in the hallway, the killer. Hiding in the dark, steady, focused. He raises the gun and pulls the trigger, aiming to wipe out the whole family, just like that. And the scary part? This poor family had just had a great night. They'd laughed, eaten well, enjoyed each other. But someone already knew what was waiting for them back home. Hey everyone. Welcome back to the True Crime Channel. You know, there are cases you just can't believe until you fall right into them. And today's case? Yeah, it's one of those. Let's start with Thomas Bartlett Whitaker. Born on December 31st, 1979, New Year's Eve in Texas. Everyone used to call him Bart. But I feel like for this video, let's just call him Thomas. It fits the mood better. Thomas was born into a rich family. They lived in this beautiful house, in one of Houston's fancier neighborhoods. A place called Sugarland. And yeah, the name says it all. It really did look like Candyland. Honestly, it felt more like a theme park than a real place where people live. So Thomas and his younger brother Kevin grow up there, in this perfect little world. Like something straight out of a family TV show. You know the type: nice lawns, big houses, clean sidewalks, happy faces. In Sugarland, the rich families live in elegant homes with big yards, backyard pools, and shiny cars. The neighbors all know each other, and when they pass each other on the street, they smile, wave, say hello, real friendly vibes. Oh, and on Sundays, everyone goes to church after service. They get together for barbecues. The kids play, the parents chat. And Thomas's family? They were exactly the kind of family that fit this postcard perfect image. His dad, Kent, was an accountant. Hard-working guy, worked long hours during the week. But weekends and evenings? Those were for family, always. He and Thomas had this shared hobby. They'd plan trips together, pack food, map out the route, and just go on road trips, just the two of them. And on those trips, they'd talk about everything. Thomas trusted his dad, fully. His mom, Tricia, was a teacher, elementary school, and she loved her job. Loved helping kids, helping parents, doing good. She was the kind of teacher who made learning fun, the kind that stayed up late, prepping crafts and cool lessons. But more than anything, Tricia loved being a mom. Her kids were everything to her. Being a mother wasn't just what she did, it was who she was. And that's exactly how everyone saw her. Tricia was the kind of person you'd go to if you were struggling: parent problems, kid problems, relationship stuff. She'd listen, she'd care, and she always had some helpful advice. Their life, it looked calm, solid, peaceful. Even if the kids ever had teenage drama or something, nobody outside ever noticed. They kept it inside the family, solved it together. From the outside, they looked like the perfect family. They were loved by their neighbors. They had tons of friends. They were part of the community. There's even this one family photo from back then, and it's like straight out of a magazine. All four of them in matching white shirts. Tricia's hair done just right. Kent with that thick, proud mustache. And Thomas and Kevin smiling, sitting right next to their parents. You look at that photo, and you think, wow, everything looks perfect. No divorce, no drama, no secrets, just a happy, tight-knit family. But here's the thing, no family is really perfect. Let's be honest, every family has something. So let's skip ahead a little. It's now 2003. Thomas is 23 years old. So it's 2003 now. Thomas has just finished his final exams at college, or at least, that's what he told his family. That night, they go out to celebrate his graduation. Dinner at a nice restaurant. Good food, some drinks, lots of laughs. It was a happy night, a special night, a proud night. Trisha and Kent were glowing. Their oldest son was graduating, and their youngest, Kevin, had just turned 19. The whole family was moving forward, and as a graduation gift, Trisha and Kent gave Thomas something he'd always wanted, a Rolex. He'd been dreaming about it for years. That night, he finally had it on his wrist. After dinner, the family drove back home to Sugar Land. They pulled into the driveway, one by one. They stepped into the hallway, and then everything happened so fast. The joy, the laughter, gone, gunshots, 4 of them, 4 shots in quick bursts. One for each member of the Whitaker family. Kevin gone instantly. Kent shot, bleeding heavily, but still breathing. He had to watch his wife and sons collapse, dying in front of him, for the neighbors, friends, and everyone who knew the Whitakers. It was unthinkable, unreal. A celebration turned massacre. Who would do this? Who would ambush such a kind, loving family on a night like this? At the same time this was unfolding, one of the lead detectives in Sugar Land had just gotten back home after church. He was still in his Sunday clothes when the emergency call came in, a family shooting. 4 victims. He was stunned. That kind of thing didn't happen in Sugar Land. Police rushed to the scene. Kevin was already gone, but Kent, he was still conscious. There was hope. Maybe he saw something. Maybe he recognized the shooter. But no, Kent said he didn't see a face. He couldn't remember. Meanwhile, Trisha died on the way to the hospital. Kent barely survived the bullet wounds near his heart, and Thomas, he had a small bullet wound on his shoulder. The police initially thought this might have been a robbery gone wrong. A break-in maybe. Someone had seen the house empty, assumed no one was home, tried to steal something, then got spooked when the family returned unexpectedly. So they panicked, shot, fled. Seems logical at first, right? But no, something didn't add up. When detectives walked into the house, things didn't feel right. The scene didn't look like a robbery at all. In the parents' bedroom, the drawers were slightly open. All of them, just a little, not yanked out, not emptied. The contents, still neatly inside, not flipped. Not dumped out, just opened. Now let's be real after a real robbery. A place looks trashed. Drawers are ripped out. Stuff is everywhere. Things are turned upside down. Jewelry's gone. Electronics are missing. But here, laptops were untouched. Valuables still there. Watches, including the brand new Rolex, not even looked at. And then there's the weapon. It was just lying there, left in the hallway, like it wasn't even important. That gun? It belonged to Kent Whitaker. He kept it hidden in a gun safe, a place no outsider would know about. Yet here it was, found, used, dropped. The gun safe was pried open, the only thing in the house that showed signs of real force. And that safe? Hidden. Now let me ask you, what kind of thief skips all the obvious loot, finds a hidden gun safe, breaks it open, and only takes the gun? Exactly, none of this made sense. That's when the detective said it out loud. This robbery, it's a setup, a cover-up. Someone tried to stage it. The real motive? Murder. But then came another problem. Who would want to kill the Whitakers? They had no enemies, no fights with anyone, no grudges, no scandals, nothing. So what now? In cases like this, you always start with the inner circle. It's harsh, but true. Most murders happen close to home. So first up, Kent Whitaker, the dad. He was still in the hospital covering, barely alive. Was it possible? Maybe he had a secret? An affair? Money troubles? A motive to get rid of his wife? But detectives found nothing, no evidence, no hint of a double life, and honestly, everyone who knew Kent confirmed the same thing. He loved his wife, adored her. He'd fallen in love with her the very first day they met on a blind date, and he never stopped being in love, so they moved on. There was another survivor, Thomas, and with Thomas, the questions started stacking up. So about Thomas, detectives quickly discovered something weird. He didn't actually take his final exam that day. In fact, he wasn't even close to graduating. The truth? He was still a junior, and he had taken time off. He'd been lying to everyone. He had told his family he was about to graduate, and they believed him. They threw him a dinner. They gave him a Rolex. But why? Why would he lie about something so big? When the police confronted him, he admitted it. He said, "I just couldn't handle the stress anymore. I needed a break." But at the same time, he didn't want to disappoint his family. Didn't want to let them down. And look, lying to your family is wrong. No one's arguing that. But I get it. I really do. Thomas came from a wealthy, successful family. A family that gave him everything, but also expected a lot. He was young. Maybe he felt like, without a degree, he was nothing. Maybe he thought he had failed them. Maybe he was ashamed. That doesn't justify lying, but it makes it human, you know. I've been in situations like that. Times when I felt torn between what people expected of me and what I actually wanted. Even now, I remember that pressure. Anyway, Thomas had made his choice. He chose to lie. He faked the graduation. He accepted the Rolex. He smiled for the pictures. And honestly, that made detectives even more suspicious. Because someone who can keep up a lie like that, maybe they're capable of more. But here's the thing, Thomas had been shot too. A bullet wound, right in the shoulder. So how could he be involved? Still, the lead detective couldn't shake the feeling. He went to Kent, still in the hospital, and gently asked, "What do you think about your son?" That's when Kent first heard that Thomas had lied about college from a cop, and even then, Kent didn't flinch. He said, "No, my son would never hurt us. He loves us." He believed it with all his heart. 6 days after the shooting, more than 100 people, friends, neighbors, family all came together for the funeral of Tricia and Kevin. Thomas had just been released from the hospital. He showed up. He looked broken, eyes red, shoulders low. Face pale, he stood there and said, "Don't worry. The police will catch whoever did this." He said it like he meant it. But no one knew what was going on behind that face. Because the truth is, by then, the detective already had a suspect. The night before the funeral, he got a strange message. Someone wanted to talk. Said they had information about the case. So just after 11:30 p.m., in a quiet parking lot behind the police station, the detective met the mystery person face to face. That anonymous source? He wasn't so anonymous. His name was Adam. He was Thomas's close friend, same age, same circle. And what Adam told the detective, it flipped the whole case upside down. Adam said, "Thomas came to me a long time ago with a plan. He wanted to kill his family." Yeah, you heard that right. Adam said Thomas had drawn out a whole blueprint, a literal map of the house, labeled with names. 3 stick figures marked Mom, Dad, and Kevin. An X showing where the shooter should stand. Everything. Even worse, Thomas had asked Adam to shoot him in the shoulder, to make it look like he was just another victim. It was all part of the act. And suddenly, All those weird puzzle pieces? They started fitting together. Adam said Thomas had even asked other friends the same question. Would you help me kill my family? That moment, the detective knew Thomas wasn't just lying about school. He was the mastermind. But one thing was still missing. Who actually pulled the trigger? With Adam's tip, the detective had something real. He needed to find out who actually helped Thomas pull this off. Who was the shooter? Who drove the getaway car? So they started digging into Thomas's friend group. Didn't take long. Soon, two names came up. Chris and Stephen, Thomas's closest friends. And here's where it gets really wild. With the help of tracking dogs, police searched the Whitaker house again. This time, they got something. The dogs picked up Chris's scent in the parents' bedroom, specifically inside one of those neatly opened drawers. Yeah, those same drawers detectives found so suspicious. Even crazier, the dogs also caught Chris's scent on the gun. When the cops brought Chris in for questioning, he tried to play dumb, said he knew nothing, said he hadn't been there. But when they hit him with the dog evidence, his face changed, he panicked, and not long after he broke, he confessed. Chris admitted it all. He was the shooter. Stephen was the driver, and Thomas? He was the one who planned the whole thing. Thomas had designed the whole murder step by step. When, where, how. He even rehearsed the timeline. Now police had the whole story, except for one small detail. Where was Thomas? Because while police were busy chasing leads, interviewing friends, and piecing together the truth, Thomas disappeared, just vanished. But before he left, he visited his dad. Kent was still recovering from surgery, still trying to make sense of it all. Thomas hugged him, said he was going to a club that night, said he'd be back the next day. But that was a lie, a final goodbye. That night, Thomas emptied his dad's cash drawer, took off with thousands of stolen dollars, and fled Sugarland destination, Mexico. So Thomas disappears into the night, crosses the border, and ends up in a tiny remote village in Mexico called Saravo, a place no one would ever think to look in there. He starts over. He picks a new name for himself, Rudy Rios, a completely fake identity. He blends in, becomes the new guy. And somehow, people actually like him. He goes to church, gets a job in a local furniture shop, smiles, talks to people. Before long, he even starts dating someone, a local woman named Sandy Lou. And when she asks him, "So why'd you come here all alone?" he tells her a story, a lie. He says he had a terrible childhood, says his family never loved him, that his mother was a prostitute, that he ran away for a better life, and he says he doesn't care what happened to them. Because they never cared about him. Can you believe that? This man who had everything, a loving mom, a proud dad, a peaceful life, he chose to betray them, not just with bullets, but with stories, lies, shame, and that scar on his shoulder. He told Sandy it was from a bomb in Afghanistan, said he was the only survivor from a military ambush. Yeah, he was now pretending to be a war hero. Unbelievable. For about 14 months, Thomas lived that lie as Rudy Rios in that quiet Mexican village, going to church, fixing furniture, smiling, hiding, but his own plan? It came back to bite him, because to escape the US, Thomas had paid someone to smuggle him across the border. That man's name? Rudy Rios, the real one. And Rudy, yeah, the actual Rudy, he was getting impatient. He wanted his money, and Thomas wasn't paying up. Eventually, Rudy had enough. He walked into a police station, told them everything, gave them the location, the name, the lie, and with that, Thomas's new life was over. Thomas was arrested in Mexico, living under a fake name, pretending to be a war hero, pretending his mother never loved him, when in truth, she died protecting him. The lead detective still remembers that moment, seeing Thomas in handcuffs, orange jumpsuit, head down. He looked normal, like any other young guy, not like a son who tried to wipe out his entire family. But now the truth was out. The accomplices had confessed. Thomas was the mastermind, the planner, the liar, and in the end, the survivor. In court, he pled guilty. He confessed to it all. But here's what shook everyone. This wasn't the first time he had planned the murder. There had been another attempt, a previous night, a different shooter waiting in the house, gun loaded, ready. But something went wrong. An alarm tripped, the shooter ran, and you'd think that would have been it, right? A second chance, a divine warning, a narrow escape. But no, instead of pulling back, Holmes doubled down, planned it again. Executed it better, and even more terrifying. Multiple friends had agreed to help him, at least 5 different people, at different points. Said yes, said they'd help him kill his family. That's what makes this case so chilling. In the end, the evidence was overwhelming. Even Thomas's own defense attorney didn't fight to prove innocence. He only had one goal: avoid the death penalty, so Thomas confessed. He cooperated. He begged for life in prison. But the state? They saw him as a continuing threat. They believed that even behind bars, he was dangerous, capable of manipulating, of scheming, of destroying. So the sentence came down. Death, Chris, the shooter? He got life in prison, Thomas. He was sent to death row. Thomas spent 11 years on death row, locked away in a tiny cell, waiting for the clock to run out. But during that time, someone was fighting for him, someone unexpected. His father, Kent Whitaker, the man who lost his wife and youngest son, the man who almost died that night, the man who now was trying to save the life of the son who destroyed everything. Most people can't even begin to imagine that. Kent had always been religious, but after the shooting, he became deeply, almost radically spiritual. He believed that God had been preparing him to face something no father should ever face. And in that belief, he found a way to forgive Thomas. He visited him in prison after years of silence, and when he saw him separated by bulletproof plexiglass, he looked into his son's eyes and said, "You look well." Thomas looked back and said, "I'm okay, Dad, and I'm so sorry for all of it. I know it's all my fault." The court didn't believe he was truly sorry, but Kent did. He truly believed his son had changed. There's even a picture of them, father and son, smiling at the camera. Kent's hair now gray, Thomas thinner, tired, worn, but for a moment, they look like a regular father and son. If it weren't for the glass wall between them, you wouldn't guess what they'd been through. Kent kept fighting. He wrote letters, spoke at hearings, begged for his son's life, he said, taking Thomas's life. "It won't bring my wife and Kevin back. It'll just kill what's left of my family." February 22, 2018. The execution was scheduled for 6 p.m. Thomas ate his last meal, said goodbye. He had only 30 minutes left to live. But then a miracle. The governor of Texas stepped in. Granted clemency. Thomas's death sentence was lifted. He would spend the rest of his life in prison. But he would live. Why the change? Because of Kent. Because a father who had lost everything still couldn't bear to lose his son, even a son like Thomas. And now, they see each other regularly. Kent visits. They talk. Thomas writes. He's published over 150 poems and essays on a blog called Minutes Before 6. Words from a man who once chose death for others and now lives with it every day. This story broke me because, yes, we've all made bad choices. We've all looked back and thought, what the hell was I thinking? But Thomas didn't make one bad decision. He made it twice. He had a chance to stop, and he didn't. He killed the people who loved him most. But the person I respect the most in all of this, Kent, because forgiveness like that, it's not natural, it's not easy, it's something beyond human. And you have to ask yourself, if it hadn't been his son, would he still have forgiven? That's the question I leave you with. Thanks for watching. If this case hit you the way it hit me, leave a like and subscribe. See you in the next one. Until then, stay safe.
Okay, so imagine this scene. A funeral. It's somber, really heavy, maybe over 100 people there. They're mourning a mother and her youngest son, Patricia and Kevin Whitaker, killed in what looks like a terrible home invasion. And right there, in the middle of it all, is Thomas Whitaker, the surviving son. He looks, well, completely broken. Red eyes, slumped shoulders, you know the picture. And he's telling people the police will catch them, they'll find who did this. But here's the thing. Even as he's saying that, the real story, the shocking truth, it's already starting to crack open behind the scenes. So welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going deep into just an incredible story. It's about manipulation, yes, but also this profound betrayal, and then forgiveness. A level of forgiveness that, honestly, it defies belief. Our source for this is powerful. The betrayal and redemption of Thomas Whitaker. So the first sign that something was really wrong, it actually came the night before that funeral. A detective gets this weird message. Late at night, someone saying they have crucial information. It's after 11:30 p.m., quiet parking lot. The detective meets the source. And who is it? It's Adam.
Thomas Whitaker's close friend. And what Adam tells him well, it flips the whole case completely upside down. Okay, let's unpack this a bit.
Yeah, it's chilling, really. Adam tells the detective that Thomas came to him a long time ago, he said, with a plan to kill his entire family.
Wow.
And this wasn't just some vague thought bubble, no. Adam said Thomas had actually drawn a blueprint, a literal map of the house. He labeled it Mom, Dad, Kevin, little stick figures drawn on it.
Stick figure.
Yeah. And an X marking the exact spot where the shooter needed to stand. The detail, the cold calculation, it's deeply unsettling.
And okay, it gets even more disturbing, if that's possible. Thomas actually asked Adam to shoot him.
Yeah.
In the shoulder. He wanted to look like just another victim. It was all part of this elaborate act he was planning.
Right. And what's fascinating here, or maybe horrifying is the better word, it's not just the meticulous planning, it's the manipulation. He wasn't just manipulating his family, deceiving them. He was manipulating his friends. Deeply.
Because Adam wasn't the only one, was he?
No, that's the key. Adam told the detective Thomas had asked other friends the same awful question. Would you help me kill my family? And that detail, that's when the detective knew. This wasn't just about Thomas lying about school or something small. No, this guy was the mastermind. It really shines a dark light on how someone like that can exploit loyalty, maybe vulnerability, push boundaries until the unthinkable starts to seem possible to these friends.
So, okay, Adam's tip gives them the mastermind, Thomas.
Okay.
But they still needed the actual trigger man.
Right.
And the getaway driver.
Exactly.
So the police dive into Thomas's inner circle, his closest friends.
And it doesn't take long. Two names pop up pretty quickly. Chris Brashear and Stephen Champagne, close friends.
And this is where the forensics come in big time.
Absolutely critical. They do a second search of the Whitaker house, this time with tracking dogs.
Okay.
And the dogs hit on Chris's scent in the parents' bedroom. Specifically, get this, inside one of those dresser drawers. Remember the detectives thought it was weird how neatly they were opened?
Yeah, I remember that detail. Inside the drawer.
Inside the drawer. And even more damning, the dogs picked up Chris's scent directly on the gun, the murder weapon.
Wow. Okay, so that's pretty definitive.
You'd think so. When they bring Chris in, he tries to play dumb at first, denies everything.
Standard procedure, maybe?
Right. But when they hit him with the dog evidence, the scent in the drawer on the gun, he panics. And then he breaks. Confesses everything.
The whole thing.
The whole thing. Chris admits he was the shooter, Stephen was the driver, and Thomas. Thomas designed it all, step by step, when, where, how. They even rehearsed the timing. Suddenly, the whole horrifying picture just snaps into focus for the police.
But while all this is happening, the investigation, the interviews, Chris cracking, "Where's Thomas?"
Gone. Vanished.
Disappeared.
Completely. His last chat with his dad, Kent, who's still recovering in the hospital, it's a lie.
Another lie.
Yeah. Thomas hugs him, says something like, "I'm going to a club tonight, Dad. See you tomorrow."
A final, calculated goodbye. That night, he empties his dad's cash drawer, steals thousands of dollars, and flees, leaves Sugarland, heads straight for Mexico.
Okay, so he's on the run. Where does he end up?
He lands in this tiny, really remote Mexican village, Sorovo, like off the map kind of place. No one would think to look there.
And he just blends in.
Amazingly, yeah. He adopts a fake name, Rudy Rios, and he just becomes this new person.
Rudy Rios.
Uh-huh. People seem to like him. He went to church, got a job making furniture at a local shop, smiled, made small talk. Pretty soon, he's even dating a local woman named Sandy Lou.
But what does he tell her about his past?
Oh, he crafts this whole elaborate story, just pure fiction.
Like what?
Terrible childhood, unloving family. He actually told Sandy his mother was a prostitute.
No.
Yes. Said he ran away to find a better life, didn't care what happened to his family because they never cared about him, painting himself as this tragic figure.
And the shoulder wound, the one he asked Adam to inflict.
Right, the scar. He tells Sandy Lou it's from a bomb in Afghanistan. Pretends he's some kind of war hero.
A war hero. The audacity is just staggering. He builds an entire identity on absolute lies.
And he lives that lie. For about 14 months, he's Rudy Rios, the quiet furniture maker with a tragic past in this little village.
But lies like that, they tend to unravel, don't they?
They do, and this one started because of how he got to Mexico in the first place. He'd paid someone to smuggle him across the border.
Okay.
And that smuggler's name, the real Rudy Rios.
Oh, you're kidding. He used the smuggler's name.
He did. And apparently Thomas wasn't paying the real Rudy the money he owed him. So the real Rudy gets impatient.
So what does he do?
He goes to the police.
Yeah.
And tells them everything. Where Thomas is hiding, the fake name he's using, all the lies. The whole house of cards comes crashing down.
So Thomas gets arrested.
In Mexico.
Still living as Rudy Rios, still playing the war hero part.
Yeah, the lead detective mentions seeing him in handcuffs, looking just utterly normal. Not like someone who orchestrated the murder of his mother and brother and tried to kill his father.
So back in the U.S., in court, what happens?
Well, he pleads guilty, confesses to everything. No trial needed on guilt.
Right.
But then, during sentencing, something comes out that just shocks everyone.
What was that?
This wasn't the first time he'd planned it.
The first time.
No. There had been another attempt, a different night, a different shooter lined up, gun loaded, ready to go.
What happened?
Something went wrong. An alarm tripped, apparently, and that shooter got spooked and ran off.
So he had a chance. A clear sign, maybe, to stop.
You'd think, wouldn't you? A second chance. A warning shot, literally almost. But no. Instead of stopping, Thomas he doubled down, planned it again, and in his own chilling words later, executed it better the second time.
Unbelievable.
And maybe the most terrifying part. It wasn't just one or two easily manipulated friends. Over time, multiple frenzy investigations suggested at least 5 different people at different points had actually agreed to help him kill his family. 5 people.
That really is a critical question, isn't it? How?
Oh, yeah.
How does one person convince 5 different people to agree to something so horrific? What's the psychology there?
It's complex, definitely. It often involves a kind of toxic charisma, maybe identifying and exploiting people's vulnerabilities. Maybe they needed money, maybe they craved acceptance, maybe they were just easily led. And it's usually not just one big ask, right? It's often a gradual thing, little steps, escalating requests, maybe testing boundaries. It can desensitize people. They get drawn in step by step until they feel too entangled, perhaps, or they've rationalized it somehow. It's a really disturbing aspect of manipulation.
So with the confession, the evidence, the failed first attempt, the outcome in court seems almost inevitable.
Pretty much. The evidence was overwhelming. His own lawyer wasn't arguing innocence, just trying to avoid the death penalty.
Did Thomas show remorse?
He said he was sorry, cooperated, begged for life in prison. But the prosecution, the state, they saw him as manipulative, dangerous, a continuing threat. So the sentence was death.
Death penalty. And Chris, the shooter.
Chris got life in prison. Thomas was sent to death row, and he spent 11 years there.
11 years on death row. But then, the story takes another completely unexpected turn, doesn't it?
It really does. Profoundly unexpected. Because someone starts fighting for him, fighting to save his life.
And that someone is?
His father, Kent Whitaker.
The father. The man who lost his wife, his younger son, nearly died himself. He fought for Thomas.
He did. became the sole passionate advocate fighting to keep Thomas off the execution table. It's almost impossible for most people to comprehend.
How did Kent explain that? How did he get there?
Kent was always religious, but after the shooting, his faith became incredibly central, almost radical, you could say.
Okay.
He came to believe that God had somehow prepared him for this unthinkable tragedy, and through that deep faith, he found a way to forgive Thomas. He truly forgave him.
And did he see Thomas?
Yes. After years of silence, he visited him in prison. Imagine that scene. Separated by thick plexiglass, Kent looks at Thomas and just says simply, "You look well."
Wow.
And Thomas looks back, says, "I'm okay, Dad, and I'm so sorry for all of it. I know it's all my fault."
Did Kent believe him? The court didn't seem convinced about the remorse.
No, the court wasn't convinced. But Kent believed him. He felt his son had genuinely changed, was truly sorry.
There's that picture, isn't there, of them smiling through the glass?
Yeah, it's incredibly poignant. Father and son smiling, but that thick glass wall always between them. Kent's hair gray, Thomas looking thinner, older. It's an image that just holds so much weight, so much history. Kent's journey, it shows how sometimes for some people, facing extreme trauma can lead to this kind of profound spiritual shift. Forgiveness becomes less about letting the perpetrator off the hook and more about the victim's own path, finding peace, breaking a cycle of bitterness maybe.
And Kent didn't just forgive privately, he fought.
Relentlessly. Wrote letters, testified at hearings, pleaded for clemency. His words were incredibly powerful. He said things like, "Taking Thomas's life, it won't bring my wife and Kevin back. It'll just kill what's left of my family." He was begging them not to inflict another loss on him.
Which brings us to February 22nd, 2018, Execution Day.
Yeah. Scheduled for 6:00 p.m. Thomas had eaten his last meal. They were counting down the minutes, only 30 minutes left.
30 minutes.
And then the call comes. The governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, stepped in. He granted clemency.
Well, just like that.
Just like that. Thomas's death sentence was lifted. Commuted to life in prison. He would live.
Why? Why the last minute change?
Because of Kent. Everyone agrees. It was because of his father's unwavering fight. A father who'd lost almost everything, but just couldn't bear to lose his son too, even that son.
So where are they now?
Their relationship continues. Kent visits Thomas regularly. They talk. And Thomas writes a lot. He's apparently published over 150 poems and essays online on a blog called Minutes Before 6.
Minutes Before 6. Wow. From a man who faced execution. Now reflecting, I suppose.
It's just such a heartbreaking story, so complex. Thomas Whitaker, he didn't just make one awful choice. He made it twice.
Right. He had that chance to stop after the first attempt failed, and he didn't take it. He killed the people who loved him most.
He did. But then there's Kent Whitaker. His forgiveness. It doesn't feel natural, does it? It's not easy. It feels like something almost beyond human.
And that leaves us, and maybe you, with a really tough question to sit with. If the person who had betrayed him so terribly, who'd taken so much from him, if it hadn't been his son, would Kent still have found it in herself to forgive?